As the people walk around the city, they feel a sudden earthquake. At the castle, a woman walks around and feels the earthquake, but the servant tells her there is no problem. She becomes worried, and the servant eventually explains to her that it is his young master, Yu Haiyan, who is taking a walk. The woman refuses to believe, so he opens the door and allows her to see Yu Haiyan, an obese young man who insists he must reduce his weight. He walks, taking his steps and causing an earthquake until an insect bites him, and he collapses. As he collapses, he remembers having to get the Murim before the world gets destroyed. He is Jin Wigan, and he has been sent by his masters to the past to protect the Murim from the hands of the minions of chaos. In the future, the minions of chaos will come to the world, and they will reunite the Murim and cause the world to get destroyed. When they did that in his future world, he lost his parents and thought all hope was lost for him until he met his masters, Shale and Master Sage One Gang, Wooting Sword Immortal Woon Haiyan, Heaven Strategist Hegel Murin, Tang Clanum Chunsu, Beggar Sect Ch Wibble, and the Sword King Namgung Sung. He assumes meeting them will change his life, but they make him undergo several torture and training so he can fulfill their mission. He has done martial trainings for years, and he eventually becomes strong for the mission. He is sent to the past to secure the Murim before the minions arrive, and he is excited only for him to enter the body of an obese Yu Haiyan. When he enters Yu Haiyan's body, Yu Haiyan has collapsed, and his father, Yu Sungwon, with his friend, Jang Seong, who doubles up as a physician, are struggling to save him. When Jin Wigging figures out where he is, he doesn't know how he will fight with that body that can't walk. He has to get the virgin ginseng before it gets to the hands of the minions, and he remembers the minions will get the virgin ginseng in 6 months. Now he has to find out how he will walk and become his usual self in 6 months. Upon figuring out what's going on with him, he screams at the adults and figures one of the men there is his father. He tells his father, Sungwon, that he wants to take a stroll, and Sungwon calls the servants to bring him a 4-person sedan chair. He tells him it isn't a stroll if he is on the chair, and he wants to walk by himself, so they call a servant, H. Wang Chong, to lead him out. He walks for about a month, but there are no changes in his body. He sits down on the swing to think of what to do, and he realizes he doesn't even remember the real name of the minions nor what he looks like. He wonders if he has lost his memory, but assumes that since the minion will be coming for the virgin ginseng at MANHWA first, and he will be weak without it, he should wait there and fight the minion there. However, he can't do that with his body. Since he is talking and laughing alone, H. Wang gets concerned and calls the physician, Seong. When Seong arrives, Haiyan asks Seong if they can do medicine that can make him reduce in a month. Seong says the fastest could be in 3 years, but he has another option that they can use, which is the water buoyancy. They go to the water, and he walks in the water easily. He gets excited and keeps walking until he misses the stone and start drowning. H. Wang doesn't know he is drowning as he thinks he is just enjoying the water. It takes his servant a long while to find out that he is actually drowning. H. Wang doesn't know how to swim, so they call for help, and Haiyan's older sister, Yoonghai, arrives with a servant to help him. While drowning, Jin sees the vision of Haiyan when he was younger and how his mother died begging him to live on and stay strong. In the long run, Yoonghai arrives to save him, and he is taken home after he faints. H. Wang and Seong go to report to Sungwon as regards what happened to Haiyan. H. Wang pushes the blames on Seong, claiming it's Seong who convinced Haiyan to go to the water. Sungwon gets angry and attempts to kill Seong, but before then, Yoonghai arrives and asks Seong what has happened. Seong explains that after Haiyan was rejected by his fiance's family, it affected his mental health, and he wants to lose weight, which is why he recommended the stream. Yoonghai concludes that if Haiyan wants to lose weight, they should let him do it properly. Haiyan eventually wakes up and figures out Haiyan's past. Jin realizes the reason Sungwon pampers Haiyan is because of his wife. Yoonghai arrives with her servant, and they tell him they are going out. They take him to the carriage, although he wonders why they are that nice to him until he finds out where they are going, and he screams. When he gets there, he sees them putting stones together, and they are clearing a portion of the land. He assumes they are digging a grave, and he asks Yoonghai what they are doing. She tells him that since he wants to swim, they will prepare a place where he will be the only one swimming and can't get drowned. She tells him they are preparing a swimming pool for him. He sees the servants working cheerfully when they notice him, and they all smile at him happily. He wonders why they are all happy, considering that they are working as a servant, so he asks H. Wang who his father is. H. Wang explains that Sungwon is the patriarch scholar, and he is the best and the nicest of all. He realizes that his father is rich and he is the only son, and he can enjoy a pampered life. He enters the water to start training. He asks H. Wang for a chain, and he tries to train his circulation. He realizes that Haiyan's circulation has been blocked, and his energy flow can't reach his heart core. He remembers a technique his masters had taught him for that purpose, the spirit energy heart circulation technique. He uses it, and he can feel his energy flowing into his core. When he is sure it's successful, he decides to try it with Shaolin's strongest fist technique, which could defeat over 100 people, and he uses the 100 feet mystic first. He keeps training for about a month, and after a month, he finds out he has eventually lost weight. He sits on the weight, and he confirms it. He is so happy, and he sits with H. Wang to celebrate it. H. Wang mentions the people who will be so glad about his weight loss, including how he will humiliate the in-laws that rejected him. He tells H. Wang to read the room and leave. He sits alone, thinking of what to do. Although he has achieved enough, it is not enough for his mission. He concludes that if internal energy is gotten by endless cultivation spirit, then he can get the spirit energy mind cultivation technique by consuming mystical creatures and mystical herbs. He remembers the virgin ginseng that the minion is coming for, and he plans to eat it before the minion. While he is thinking, Seon arrives and gives him a 15-year-old tuber fleece mystical herb. herb. He eats it happily and cultivates his internal energy. He goes to train and uses a palm technique. When Hwang sees it, he comments that it is a lie and there is no way an old fat like Hyan can do that. Sungwon arrives and overhears him. He threatens to punish him but doesn't do so. He tells his servant that since Hyan wants to engage in martial arts, he will encourage him, so he decides to write a letter to the imperial palace. Sungwon gives Hyan material from the emperor. It's the Divine Heaven Manual. He tells him that when he found out he had an interest in martial arts, the emperor decided to gift them the book. Meanwhile, he got the book only because he pestered the emperor for it. He tells Hyan that he now has a master, which is his brother-in-law, Dam Chunwoo, a martial art professional from the Dam clan. He looks at how proud Chunwoo is about his skills and contemplates if he should confess to them about who he is, but he decides to keep quiet because Sungwon may ask him to bring his son. He starts training with Chunwoo, who is more interested in the foundation of martial arts. Chunwoo calls him several names, which annoys him, so after 10 days of training as Chunwoo's subordinate, he asks Chunwoo for a duel. Chunwoo assumes he is weak, so he tells him he will seal his internal energy so they can have an impartial fight. Hyan starts with the bird dragon soaring, and he combines it with the other 7 skills. Although his body fails him at a point, he uses his ultimate attack and defeats Chunwoo. Hwang is demoted, and he now works by the gate. After Hyan finishes with Chunwoo, Chunwoo is in a weak state, and Hyan walks back to the house. He sees Hwang dosing by the gate, and he asks him if he is enjoying his new duty. Hwang asks him why he isn't training, and he says Chunwoo isn't in a good state to fight. In the room, Chunwoo tells Yoonghai that Hyan has defeated him, and Yoonghai is proud of his brother. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, some secret evil team comes to check around, and one of them, Jeoksung, walks around in the aiming prefecture. That same day, Hyan decides to take a walk. As he walks around, he sees people smiling, and he remembers that he can't remember the last time he saw people smile. He says in his former life, the people were sad by the chaos caused by the minion, and they had to use the corpses as cover clothes. As he walks around, people recognize him. Amid the commotion of everyone trying to give him gifts, he notices the energy of a man with martial arts. The man figures he has noticed him, and as he thinks, Hyan confronts him. Jeoksung attacks him and runs away. He collapses, and when he wakes up, he feels the urge to reduce weight and return to his real form to defeat his enemies. He also plans to visit the beggar's den for more information about the virgin ginseng. He decides to walk to the beggar's den while his sister, Yoonghai, tells his father about his great strength in martial art. Sungwon is excited, and he asks if he should take Hyan to join the government, but Yoonghai stops him. She asks if he is trying to hasten him because he wants to revenge against the Namgun clan, whose daughter, Hai, rejected Hyan, but Sungwon says it may not be the clan who had rejected Hyan but Hai. He says Hai has never wanted to be under a man. Yoonghai suggests that the reason he is like that is because of their mother, and he confesses that he feels bad for Hyan and that the assassins who had killed his mother should have killed him instead since they were out for him. Meanwhile, Hansu of the Namgun clan comes to the better sect with his son to find more information about Hyan so they can reject Hyan properly. Hyan also goes to the den but doesn't find the beggars. He knows that beggars have a lot of information, and he needs them. He meets someone who tells him the patriarchy has built a castle for beggars and he should visit them there. Hansu gets there before him and asks the leader, Oh Hyan, for information about Hyan, but the man refuses, claiming he has to get a go-ahead from the main branch. Hansu bribes him with the Emperor ring, and the man thinks of what to do. Outside the sect, Hyan arrives, and a guard who doesn't recognize him humiliates him by calling him fatty and asks him to leave, claiming there is a visitor. Hyan gets angry and attempts to fight back. The Emperor ring is known to be very powerful, and it seems like a good deal to Oh Hyan. He asks Hansu if Hansu is really against that marriage for him to drop something that important, but regardless, he accepts the deal because it would be insane to reject such a deal, and he brings out a book containing all the information about Hyan from the day he was born until the day before, asking him to read it while he goes to write a letter to the headquarters. As Hyan walks away, he hears noises outside and assumes a commotion is happening there. Outside the sect, Hyan has started fighting the Namgun guard who had humiliated him. He hits the boy on his first attempt, and the boy gets humiliated. He refuses to accept his loss and says it's because he had underestimated Hyan for being a fatty. He prepares to fight again but hits him again. Hyan mocks his skills and says he is from the dirty Namgun clan and he doesn't have good skills. The boy gets furious, and he decides to use the exploding lightning mystic fist. Considering Hyan's present body, there is no way he could win the fight, so he decides to use a reflex mode he has learned, and he plans to use it to turn the attack. He does that, and he successfully dispels the fist, but he gets distracted. During the fight, he thinks about when his master was training him and how much he had to train under his master. The boy pushes him away, and he falls. Although the boy succeeds in pushing him away, he is concerned that Hyan could dispel his spell. Hyan stands up in anger, hoping to go and kill him, but he faints. As Hyan faints, Oh Hyan comes out of his office. He sees Hyan on the floor and screams at Hansu's son, Sung, asking what he did to Hyan. Oh, Hyan gets angry, but Hansu takes the book he has gotten and tears it, saying he doesn't need it again. They call the healer to check up on Hyan, and they report the issue to Sungwon, who gets angry at Oh Hyan for what had happened. Oh Hyan denies having a hand in everything, and he claims it's Hansu's fault. He speaks internally to Hansu, asking him to kneel down to beg before Sungwon goes to report them to the Emperor. Sungwon says he will leave Sung because Sung could later be his brother-in-law. When he sees that Hansu refuses to kneel, he says he is going to the Emperor, and Hansu kneels to beg. Amid all that, Hyan walks out of the house and asks what's happening, while his father, Sungwon, complains that Sung has almost killed his son. Hyan comes out of the house looking agile and with a new hair packing that everyone around appreciates. They tell him the hair is pretty and it's Sajin who had packed it, so he shouldn't lose it. Oh, Hyan quickly runs to meet him. Immediately he sees him. He goes to touch him, saying he didn't know he was being beaten outside, and he is very sorry. Hyun tells them he is fine, and he goes to meet his father. He asks Sungwon if he is going to the emperor to report, and he says that the matter is minor and it doesn't deserve him to go to the emperor, claiming that the emperor is busy. Hyun goes to Hansu and bows to him, calling him his uncle before he goes to Sung. He tells Sung that although Sung is older than him because he is 17 and Sung is 20, but he tells Sung to call him uncle. He holds Sung by his cheek, asking him to call him uncle, and as he does so, he remembers one of his training with his master. He says that his master is very brutal, and he would hit people mercilessly during one of their duels. He tells his master he is giving up, but his master asks him if that's how he will accept defeat in the battlefield, and he hits him again. Sungwon hosts Hansu and Sung inside the house and asks Hansu what Hansu had come to the beggar sect for. Hansu knows he can't tell them the truth, so as he thinks of what to do, Hyun steps in. He says he is sure Hansu had visited to talk about the marriage plans and says that he doesn't want to marry into their clan. He says in his mind that he has a lot of things to do, and he still wants to fight the minion, so he doesn't have time for an arranged wedding. He says he wants to help the emperor and also step into the Murim. His father gets angry, asking him if he knows what Murim is. He says the Murim is filled with thugs and evils, so he doesn't want him to go there. In response, Hyun reminds him that the Namgun clan stays by the Murim and asks if they are also thugs. He expects Hansu to add to the conversation so the marriage plans will end successfully, but when he asks Hansu what he thinks, Hansu tries to tell him his family depends on the marriage, so he walks away. He calls Oh Hyun and asks to see him. He walks around with Oh Hyun and asks him about the Murim. He talks about how skilled he knows the Murim are and how efficient they are. Oh Hyun tells him he is correct, and he says he knows his masters are working. He asks him if the Murim is now divided into orthodox, unorthodox, and demonic sectors, and Oh Hyun tells him he is correct, but the sectors are divided from the country with a bridge, so he doesn't have to worry, but he knows the minion will take them as servants in about 10 years. He says he needs to have his first student, and he thinks it will be Sung. He goes to train again, and H-Wang comes to stop him. He reminds him that he was injured the day before and may faint again, but Hyun says he is okay. Janghai also arrives. She stops him from training and tries to convince him not to go to the Murim. She reminds him that their mother died because they got involved in the Murim, so he reassures her that he will be fine and he will never allow any evil to happen to their family again. The statement sounds cute to Janghai, and she goes to touch his cheek. After several months of training, he eventually sheds all his weight and becomes his usual self. He goes to Sungwon, and Sungwon is concerned about his bones. He tells Sungwon that Oh Hyun told him there is snow in Hyeongshan, and he wants to check, and he also wants to stop by the Namgun clan. His real reason for going there is to train Sung, but he tells his father he wants to check up on them. He also claims he is going to Ahui. Before Sungwon can reply, he leaves the table and Sungwon thinks of what to do. He knows if he stops him, he may run away. Hyun goes to prepare for his journey. He plasters his face completely so no one will recognize him. As he is about to leave, he sees an escort team waiting for him outside his room. He sees H-Wang and asks H-Wang where they are going to, and H-Wang tells him his father has commanded them to escort him to Anhui. He thinks of what to do, considering that his mission is secret and he is going to get the virgin ginseng. He knows that if he tells anyone about it, it will cause them to panic, and he needs a way to send H-Wang off his back, so he postpones their journey to the following days and asks H-Wang to join him in drinking. He poisoned H-Wang and suppressed his internal energy for a while with a poison given to him by Seong when he was preparing for his journey. As he comes out, he sees Young-Hai. Fortunately, she doesn't bother to disturb him. She only tells him that he can come back home if he feels his mission is too hard. She tells him there is a lightning steed horse at the stable, which could run about 5,000 km/h, and asks him to use it. He takes the horse and rides to Anhui. He stops at a restaurant where he eats and asks the waiter to get him all the ginseng hunter that knows the city well. Meanwhile, some hunters report to their opponent that they have found the virgin ginseng. He leaves with them immediately so they can take the ginseng. They gather some ginseng hunters for him. He asks the men if they know a boulder in Hwangshan that has a crimson light. He comments that the thought of something like that is quite stupid. But that's what his masters told him, and when he also heard it, he felt it was stupid. However, an older man, Baksu, tells him he had seen it once in the mountain when he got lost. He asks Baksu where the mountain is, and Baksu tells him it is at Pagoda Peak. However, he says the peak contains the Nine Dragon Fortress, a very terrible terrorist group, and they have been in existence for a long time, so that side is considered not safe. Considering that no one can get there, Hyun figures that's where the ginseng will be. He begs Baksu to guide him there, and Baksu accepts. When they get there, they see a stream connecting to the peak, and Baksu tells him the light will show at night. That night, the red light shows. He gives Baksu a gift and asks him to return home while he takes the stream and gets to the fortress. As he walks, he sees a bandit hitting and beating a woman. He wants to interfere but stops himself because of his mission. But he finds it difficult to walk away so much that Jin appears to tell him to walk if he won't interfere. Jin Wagang tells him to leave, telling him it's none of his concern. But he claims that if he can't save random people in danger, then what is the use of saving the Murim? He could just let Murim also be. He decides he won't be a coward, and he will save them. He goes there and hits the man saving the woman and her son. They appreciate him asking if he is from the government. He claims he is just passing by and decides to stop by. Another bandit comes out and sees him, the man attacks him, and he hits the man. He enters the house where the other kidnapped people are. They ask him who he is and if he is with the government. He tells them he is alone and wants to save them, but they tell him there are about 50 bandits around. He wonders if he could defeat about 50 bandits since there will be some who are good at martial arts, but regardless, they ask him what he wants them to do. He picks someone as the leader and he fights the bandits coming. He tells them that when the watchtower collapses, it will be their signal to escape. So after he defeats the person watching the tower and the tower collapses, the slaves run away. He burns the house that they are keeping, and it calls the attention of the other bandits who are sleeping. Just as they start coming out, he hits the first one and enters their house with the fire in his hands. He announces to them that he is the arsonist. He calls their attention to himself so the slaves will escape. They wonder where he had gotten the guts to break into their fortress and cause that much havoc. They all start chasing him together, and that's quite bad for him as he won't be able to them down at once, and he would lose most of his internal energy. Another thing is they are all good in martial arts. He decides the best way to fight in that situation is to lay an ambush for them to fight him together. He runs away and makes them chase him. Meanwhile, the fortress guards see what is happening inside the fortress, and they realize they have allowed an intruder into the fortress. They run away so the chief won't kill them, giving the slaves more opportunities. He stops when the bandits surround him. They all attempt to fight him together, but their chief stops them, asking him if they will allow the whole place to burn before they quench the fire. He asks Hyan who he is and if he has come alone. Hyan replies affirmatively, and the chief says his name is Guak Sasan, and he is the chief of the 9 fortress dragons. Hyan wonders if he wants an introduction, and he doesn't talk. Sasan tells him he wants to recruit him. He claims he likes daring people like him, and he will like him to work under the fortress. Hyan is shocked about the offer, and he also sees it as a great distraction to allow the slaves to escape, and so he will also recover his energy. So he sits down and engages Sasan in a conversation after he gains his energy. He stands and asks Sasan why a wolf will work under a dog. He calls Sasan a dog and asks if Sasan wants to fight against him. Angrily, Sasan asks his boys to hit him, and they all go to fight him at once. Sasan asks his men to surround him and hit him. He calls Sasan a coward, saying that he couldn't fight on his own and that he had to send his boys to him. The boys insult him for having his face plastered, but he tells them he looks human and they look like monsters. He decides that he will spread them out to defeat them, but his cheap trick fails. They attack at the same time, and he exhausts his spirit energy. Sasan tells him that he is stronger than he has imagined because he doesn't know he could fight them without using internal energy, but Hyan says he has exhausted his spirit energy. He feels he will lose and wonders why he had confronted them in the first place since he doesn't know how strong they are. He figures they are professional fighters, and he stands no chance among them. He decides that he will concentrate on his center of gravity, and he uses a secret technique called the 8 Drunken Immortal Step. He applies the Jingong, which should make a warrior very light to fight, and he uses his lightness to have shadowless flight. He does the shadowless flight and successfully slaps Sasan. He goes towards the cliff and attempts to jump down. He says that he is sure they won't want to follow him. After he jumps, Sasan asks his boy, Woody, to check around the cliff and find him, claiming he has to confirm he is dead to appease his anger. Another of his bandit came to tell him they could only find 3 corpses in the burning building, and Hyan had distracted them so the slaves will escape. He orders the boys to find the slave. Meanwhile, Hyan tries to have a safe landing on the water so he will not get injured. Unfortunately for him, he falls into a whirlpool. Upon realizing that he is inside the whirlpool, he knows that he can't break out of the pool unnecessarily, and he has to make his spirit energy go with the flow. He does what he should do, and fortunately for him, he survives. He falls into the water and he is tired. He says he will rest from looking for the virgin ginseng for a while, and suddenly, he feels an uprise in his spirit energy. It means the virgin ginseng he is looking for is somewhere around him. He walks with the flow despite not knowing where he is. He eventually finds the ginseng. He runs to hold it excitedly and he uproots it. He sees that the root looks like a child and assumes that's why it is called the virgin ginseng. He wonders if he should drink it immediately and shows the reader before drinking. When he drinks it, he notices the spirit energy is dense, and he sucks it hoping to go back and fight Sasan. Meanwhile, in the city, H-Wang has finally arrived. He asks around for Hyan, but they tell him they only met a Jin Wagang. He remembers how Sungwon found him sleeping after being heavily drunk, and Sungwon hit him till he collapsed, saying that he would kill him if he didn't bring his son back. H-Wang goes around the city and he sees Hyan's horse. He sees a young boy taking care of the horse and assumes it's Hyan. When he gets there, the boy tells him the horse owner has gone to Pagoda Peak, where the mountain bandits are, despite the warnings of the adults that he shouldn't go. He screams and runs away but returns after falling to ask the boy where Pagoda Peak is. The slaves are finding their way back to the city and they meet Baksu on the way. Meanwhile, Sasan's subordinates are still looking for Hyan. They search around the water to no avail, and they assume that the water may have swept him away. Although they know Sasan wouldn't take it lightly with them if they do not find him, so they decide to share themselves into groups to find him even if it's his corpse. As Hyan comes out of the water, he sees some of the bandits by the water, his bandages already removed, so the men do not recognize him. He asks them for their clothes, telling them he is coming for them regardless, and he fights them for the clothes. He takes all of their clothes, and he tells them he will kill them. They can't fight him back, so they run away, and he wonders why they are running since he is their target. His body gets dirty, so he goes to the stream to wash his face, and he sees he now has a handsome look. His body is now tight, and he looks good, and it's the work of the virgin ginseng. He is glad that he can now be a member of the family and that he would no longer look adopted. On the other hand, the bandits find Baksu. They find out he knows Hyan and assumes he is working with Hyan, so they start hitting him. At about the same time, they see Hyan by the stream, and after he washes his face, he goes to meet them. He hits them terribly as an act of revenge, and although most of them can't recognize him, he sees Baksu injured and asks who if they did that to him. He asks again for who injured Baksu, and one of the bandits denies his involvement, causing the others to tell him he is part. Hyan goes to Baksu, who tries to to recognize him. He reminds Baksu that he had told him to return to the city and puts his internal energy into Baksu to give him the strength to survive. He asks one of the bandits to carry Baksu to the city and asks the others to leave. He gets angry at the bandits and claims he will reveal heaven's punishment to them. He slams his legs, causing a thunder strike that gets to the bandits' quarters before he gets there. He gets to the bandit quarters and he kills the bandits who confront him. He asks Sasan to come out and Sasan comes. Sasan brings along weapons and other instruments, but he laughs, saying they will only make the fight slow. As they are about to fight, H-Wang arrives and confronts them. Sasan asks his bandits to confront H-Wang and attempts to escape, but Hyan follows him. He gets to the end of the road and Hyan confronts him. He doesn't recognize Hyan, so Hyan reminds him who he is. He figures Hyan is a strong fighter and he decides to apologize, but Hyan asks him how many of his victims does he accept an apology from. He reminds him of how he kills people and tortures women and young people and says he will give him heaven's judgment. He hits Sasan and Sasan dies. After fighting the bandits, H-Wang comes to him, telling him he has enmity with the bandits. He asks him if he has seen his young master, showing that he doesn't know it's Hyan in front of him. He tells Hyan that his young master is rude and he likes food. He is also lazy and can't fight. He says all the wrong words against Hyan to Hyan, and Hyan contemplates if he should kill him and bury him there too. H-Wang confesses that he knows he is the one, and he is only kidding. He tells him that he had done great work by defeating the bandits, but they have to go home because his father is angry. Hyan refuses to go. He wants to wait for the minion so he can kill him, but H-Wang brings a rope to tie him. He gets into a fight with H-Wang but wins. He gets distracted when Baksu arrives with his son to appreciate him. He also confirms that the slaves were able to escape. During the distraction, H-Wang ties him and puts him in the carriage. He begs H-Wang to release him, but H-Wang forces him to sleep and drags him home. He tells the other soldiers with him that they shouldn't announce what Hyan had done in the castle because if people knew, they would test his strength. Meanwhile, the captain who wants the virgin ginseng gets to the mountain. He finds out it has been stolen and asks his servants to find the thieves, bring them to him and kill his family and relatives. H-Wang concludes that since Hyan is now fit, they can call the Namgung family again. He eventually wakes up, and H-Wang tells him he is taking him to a massive city, and his father is waiting for him there. He gets angry at H-Wang because H-Wang has stopped his opportunity to finish the minion at once, and he doubts he will get another great opportunity, but he is glad that he at least took the virgin ginseng. He decides that he will find the minion when he goes for the second mystical creature, which is the Millennium Sea Snake. H-Wang eventually drives him to a very big city, the MANHWA capital Hefei. H-Wang asks if he has seen a city as big as that before and asks him to walk around. After walking around, they reach the emperor's castle, and his father comes out. Sungwon runs at H-Wang, asking H-Wang for his son as he can't recognize Hyan. Hyan later calls out to him that he is the one, and Sungwon wonders how he got so handsome. Some soldiers who had fought along with H-Wang tell the Namgung family about Hyan's great strength and skills, how handsome he had become, and skillful. The patriarch, Namgung Changxian, gets angry at his kids for losing the opportunity to make Hyan their son-in-law and says he will take care of it. Sungwon meets with Hyan and asks him to take the martial arts examination, but Changxian says if he does so, he will be a general at most. But if he trains under him, they can make him the most vital martial artist. Changxian accepts to single-handedly train him and claims that Hyan is just like his son. Hyan wonders why Changxian wants to teach him and concludes that since the Namgung clan owns most of the Miram he wants, it's better to be under them so his father will stop disturbing him. His father, Sungwon, is also excited at Changxian's offer and jumps at it. The two adults talk for a while before Sungwon leaves for his clan and leaves Hyan with Changxian. After Sungwon leaves, Changxian takes Hyan on a walk. They walk around the city and pass through several places. Then Changxian uses the air steps to jump to the roof. Hyan follows him. He asks Hyan if he counted how many places they went to and tells Hyan that all the places belong to his family. He claims they have other places, and the places will all become his if he decides to marry their daughter Hai. He asks him to just accept, and he will convince Hai himself, but Hyan runs away, and Changxian calls him back. Changxian convinces him that if he marries his daughter, he will get all he wants from the family and more, but Hyan insists he isn't interested in getting married. He reminds Changxian that he is the only son of his family and that his family is one of the richest clans in the whole city, so he has all the money he needs, and he doesn't need to marry any lady to get money. The following day, Changxian brings him out, and he starts doing some styles alone and shows him the Emperor's sword style and some other styles. He tells him that those styles are only for people from the Namgung clan and that if he marries Hai, he will learn the styles. He refuses again and tells Changxian that he can do the styles. He decides that since they have already seen him as a genius, he can show it. He does the Emperor's sword style, and Changxian is shocked. Changxian asks him how he learned the technique, and he says he got it when Changxian did it. Changxian declares that he is a genius and insists he will marry Hai. Meanwhile, the team is looking for him get to the restaurant he ate at. They meet a man who reports to them that a Jin Wagang came and asked about the virgin ginseng, and they start looking for Jin Wagang. Later, Sung comes to meet him and forces him out to train. He figures he will train with someone he wants to be his disciple. Sung takes him to a place, telling him he will learn under him. He tells Sung that Sung doesn't deserve to teach him, and if there is anyone who should be the teacher between them, he should be training Sung. Sung tries to provoke him into anger. He stops calling him uncle and calls him cousin, asking if he will beat him into submission. Instead of insulting him back, Hyan calls him arrogant. Sung tries to provoke him again, but Hyan puts his emotion under check. Sung is the 7 emotion sword king, and he has trained to use all the emotions against a person, but he doesn't work. Hyan laughs at him, saying he thought he was just going to enlighten him. He doesn't know he needs overall behavioral change. He challenges him to a fight, and they exchange blows. Hyan uses the exploding lightning and defeats Sung, who refuses to accept the loss and comes back at him. Hyan keeps hitting him, telling him that is how to show anger, not his stupid way. Episode 26. He sees that Sung is so weak, and it will take him several days of training Sung before Sung can get to the level of strength that he wants. He wonders if he should find the next mystical creature and feed Sung. But before that, he needs to find the person looking for the creatures so he can identify his enemy. He tells Sung that they will be training together, and for about 10 days, they keep training. Over time, he would hit Sung, teach him how to maintain his anger, and also extract it. After they train that day, he tells him they will be going somewhere. Meanwhile, in Hefei, his enemies are around looking for him, and the man gives a beggar money and asks him if he knows anything about Jin Wigan. But the man says there is no one like that in their city. They eventually find out that Hyan uses the same name, and they wonder if they should tell their captain, but the assistant asks them to confirm first before informing their captain. The man tells his team that they can't tell their captain about something they must confirm so that they will tail Hyan. Hyan comes out with Sung, and they go to buy some books on pain and loss. He tells Sung that since he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, there is no way he can know about the pain other men feel, so the best way is through books. Sung wonders if he wasn't born with a silver spoon too. Hyan tells them they will also visit the Peking Opera, so they will watch the opera, claiming that it will show them happiness, and happiness is needed to remove burdens. When one is burdenless, it will allow the person to predict his enemy. Their enemy sees them on the way, and they dispatch to tail them. They had pretended as beggars, and the Juwa sects, which are enemies of the beggars set, confront one of them, asking why they are in their sect without paying taxes. The man can't use his powers so Hyan wouldn't notice him, and when Sung sees the fight, he calls Hyan attention to it, but Hyan says it's not their concern. Another man comes to rescue him and kills the head of the Juwa sect, Wang Tal. One of the members of the Juwa sect finds out they aren't beggars and runs to report. At the castle, they receive a letter from Hai that she isn't getting married. Changxian also finds out she has gone to help the Orthodox Miram Alliance and decides the only way to get Hyan closer to her is to send him there. He flies away to execute his plans and sees a shocking thing. Changxian sees that his dear grandson is being beaten up by Hyan. He watches as Hyan teaches Sung how to use his anger, asking him to think about what is inside the book he has just read and get angry. Sung eventually succeeds in using his anger and hits him. Changxian comes down to check on them. He asks Hyan if Hyan is training Sung, but Hyan denies it. He claims it's Sung's ideas. Changxian sees the fighting methods are new to what they use in their clan, and Hyan convinces him that it's Sung's skills, and Sung decides to keep quiet. As they talk, the beggar arrives and asks to see Changxian. Changxian and Sung go to attend to the beggar while Hyan goes on a walk. Outside the castle, he falls into his enemy's squad leader again. They plan to capture him after he walks towards a secluded place. He walks around happily since he hasn't been able to walk around in his village due to people knowing him. Someone attacks him, and when he runs towards the squad. He stops and asks them why they are chasing him like rats. He sees their squad leader and recognizes him as the man who was beaten up the day before. He asks them if they were looking for him the day before, and they discuss among themselves. They agree that since he is the son of a prominent government official, it will be stupid for them to kill him, so they should ask him a few questions. They ask him if he is the Jim Wagang who took the virgin ginseng, and he tells them they have gotten the wrong person. However, he feels since they came for the ginseng, they must know the minions of chaos. He refuses to let them go, and he subdues 2 of them. He knows he will be on the losing side if they come at him at once, so he runs to the city, asking them to play with him. They get to the middle of the city and know they will get you the bad side of the sect, so they decide to kill him and go. He fights them back. The squad leader calls him a fucking bastard. The squad leader realizes he has lost, and instead of giving up, he decides to kill his people who could confess about their grand plans, and he tells the survivors to run with him. Hyan sees what they are planning, so he decides to go after the leader. Some of the squad try to distract him, but he fights them and goes for their leader. He eventually catches up with him and hits him. He asks the man who he is, and the man also asks him some questions. He says the person who wins gets to ask questions, and he will ask questions. The squad leader realizes he has lost. He had killed his colleagues to save their plan, and now he has to kill himself instead of being captured. However, he decides that before he dies, he has to kill Hyan. He confronts Hyan hoping to kill him, but Hyan uses the Shaolin ultimate technique of 100 feet mystics and hits him. He collapses, so Hyan attempts to take him to the Namgung sect. But as he does so, the leader of the beggar sect arrives. He asks to look at the man's face, and he finds out it's the same person they are looking for. He begs Hyan if they can take the man to the beggar's sect for punishment, and Hyan wonders what kind of robbery is that. He meets the beggar sect leader and asks him what's their connection with the man. They say he is connected to killing the Juwa sect leader, and the integrity of the beggar's sect is at stake. Sung also arrives, and Hyan thinks of what to do. He knows that if he takes the man and his squad and the minion gets to know about him, they may increase pressure and come for the Yu clan, which he doesn't want, so he tells the beggar clan that they can take him. But they have to ensure they don't allow anyone to know he is involved, and they will give him all the information they get for the man. They accept, and he leaves. The members of the beggar sect tell their leader that the deal doesn't profit them, but their leader says if he can uncover the secret behind the group. He may become the main leader, so he will take the deal. At home, Hyan tells Changxian about the unorthodox Miram alliance, which makes Changxian very happy, and he says he will write a letter to Hai to tell her. He begs him to get closer to Hai. Hyan asks Changxian if he can take Sung along, and Changxian refuses at first and eventually accepts. As Hyan prepares for the journey, he says he heard there are 5 female martial artists in the Miram, and he hopes he can get to know them. They eventually go to the ship on the Yangtze River. The ship owner accommodates a criminal inside his ship to help him to Wuhan. As the journey starts, Hyan tells Sung that he would like to pick a fight with the pirates. Sung stops him immediately, telling him not everything can be dealt with fight and that if all the pirates come against him, he won't be able to defeat them, and there is a member of the pirates who are as strong as Changxian, and he is called the Water Dragon, Kingu Sajin. Upon hearing that, he decides to lay low. The shop owner announces that the Black Whale stronghold ship is approaching them. They stop their ship, and he greets the vice chief Gu Diok and pays his tax, but Gu Diok says there is a criminal they are looking for, and they know he hides criminals in his ship. He says if it is not the person they are looking for, then he will leave them. The ship owner confesses, and the criminal is brought outside. He laughs and says he doesn't know they will send pirates to him, and it angers Gu Diok, who starts to fight him. As they fight, Hyan realizes the minions have appeared. As they fight, the prisoner's clothes tear, and a tattoo shows on his hand. It's the Crimson Snake tattoo. Hyan remembers his master telling him that he will meet a man with the Crimson Snake tattoo who will break out from the Orthodox Miram Alliance jail. His name is Hwang Deoxum, and he will be the one to direct him to where the next mythical creature is. He decides to join the fight. He asks Sung to fight the pirates while he faces Deoxum. He confronts Deoxum and confirms if his name is really. Deoxum then tells the pirates that he wants to speak to Deoxum, and if they have anything against that, they should fight him. As he talks, Deoxum jumps into the water and runs away. Some of the pirates follow him, leaving the vice captain on the ship. Hyan asks Sung to take care of the vice captain, and he also follows Deoxum. He swims as fast as he can, but there are several people inside the water, so he decides to cross the river by stepping on the pirates' heads. He jumps through all the pirates and calls out for Deoxum. When Deoxum turns and sees that he has taken out all the pirates, he wonders who Hyan is. He admits that he is sure Hyan is a great martial artist, but he doesn't want to accept the loss. He confronts Hyan, and they start a fight, but he loses. Hyan drags him to the shore, telling him he doesn't want to kill him. He suppresses his powers and then goes to face the pirates. He decides to use the Tang clan's hidden method by using the hidden methods of rocks and defeating the pirates. He thinks about Sung's words that it can cause war, so he decides to eradicate all the witnesses. After doing that, he faces Deoxum, and he says he is Jin Wigang. He asks Deoxum where the Millennium Sea Snail is. Deoxum wonders who he knew about the snail, and that confirms Hyan's suspicion that he knows. He, however, says he doesn't know where it is, so Hyan hits him repeatedly till he collapses. The ship with Gu Diok and Sung arrives. He puts Deoxum there, and Deoxum eventually wakes. Gu Diok tells them that the main ship of the Black Whale stronghold is around them. Gu Diok tells them that the Water Dragon will come, and they will meet the evil they don't want. Instead of panicking, Hyan tells Sung that they have guests. Sung complains that he had warned Hyan beforehand about what would happen if he fought the pirates, and now they have to fight the Water Dragons. The pirates who have fallen inside the water discuss. One of them suggests that they use the flare to call for rescue, while the other claim they have gone against the Black Whale stronghold rule. And they shouldn't. Eventually, they light the flare to get help, and their signal gets to the Orthodox Miram military advisor Eagle Subium, their sworn enemy. He asks his subordinate when the flare is found and asks him to find out who is against them, claiming that the enemy of their enemy is their ally. He asks if they are anywhere around the Water Dragon and says they can't allow them to get access into their city, so he asks the man to bring their strongest beggar, Little Beggar Dragon, to ambush them. Reports about what has happened to get to the Little Beggar Dragon. Jai Dushan, who rides along to the river with the advisor wishing him well. All the pirates start coming to the ship, and he keeps fighting them every time they come, and he gets frustrated about fighting. He asks Gu Diok if there is any nearby place they can stop so he can do what he wants to do, so Gu Diok says they can stop somewhere. Suddenly, the youngest beggar of the Orthodox Miram comes to tell them his advisor has asked him to control them, but Hyan doesn't give him attention. However, he notices everyone on the ship shivers. He wonders if it's Jai Dushan's words that make them shiver, only for him to see the Water Dragon coming to their ship. He asks Gu Diok to change the ship's direction, but the Water Dragon King stops the ship. When the Water Dragon King arrives, they pay respect to him, and he asks Hyan what happened. He lies about trying to save the people, but the king doesn't buy it. He tells him he is from Yu and has no issue with the Miram, but the king doesn't care. He figures there are 2 ways to fight enemies like that, either scare them or make them like you, and he tries to use one of them. He tells the king that he doesn't want to disobey him, and he knows he deserves to get angry because he had destroyed about 10 ships. However, he offers to compensate him. The Water Dragon King pretends to accept his idea, and he keeps pushing it, only for the Water Dragon King to tell his assistant to attack. He plans to gather his energy and attack once since he knows that he is weak against the Water Dragon. But before he can make any attempt, the Water Dragon attacks him, and he collapses. Sung tries to level up, but he confronts the Water Dragon saying he won't allow anything to happen to his uncle. When the Water Dragon looks at him, he sees he is using the enhanced sword energy and is Chang Sung's defendant. The Water Dragon says he won't kill him. He, however, looks at Hyan and how strong he is, so he takes Hyan and disappears. Hyan wakes up in a forest. They offer him food, but he can't see Sung and others around him, so he asks the Water Dragon what he has done with his people. The Water Dragon tells him that he didn't kill them and only sent them back to the Miram, although he hit Sung to the extent that Sung is almost dead. He says he has bad blood with Changsung, and he can't make it worse by killing his grandson. Upon hearing that others are fine, Hyan starts eating. The water dragon asks him how old he is and who trained him. He says he is 17, and his brother-in-law taught him. Water dragon says he fights better than the damn clan. He says that since Hyan doesn't have a master in the Murim, he will be his master. Hyan refuses, saying his father will be disappointed if he becomes a pirate, but Jungsun hits him and insists he accepts. So he accepts but says he wants a partial agreement and needs to find Hwang Deoxum and go to the Orthodox Murim first. He tells the water dragon that if he gets to Deoxum, he will make the water great, and he will spread them around. The water dragon accepts his suggestion and says he will kill him if he doesn't return. He leaves for the Orthodox Murim, and on his way, he says he only made plans because he wants to get to the mystical creature before the minion gets there, and after he gets it, he will kill the water dragon himself. Meanwhile, Jungsun angrily arrives at the mountain and asks why the water dragon hit Sung. The water dragon tells him he was the one that saved Sung from dying and he should appreciate him. Jungsun asks him where Hyan is and says Hyan is his disciple. They decide to fight, but the water dragon tells him Hyan has gone to the Orthodox Murim and he is fine. Jungsun appreciates him for saving his son, and they reconcile. Upon arriving at the Murim, Hyan meets Lee Haksung, the white marshal who recognizes him. He also recognizes Lee Haksung. He remembers that his master has told him so much about Lee Haksung and could have fought the minion if he was alive. Subium also arrives. He recognizes Subium as his master and knows how much Subium talks about Lee Haksung. He knows how much the pirates are pressuring them and how they are enemies to the pirates, so when they ask him why he fought the pirate, he says it's because he saw that they were bullying people. They ask if it is a result of justice and asks him who Deoxum is to him since he fought the pirate for Deoxum. He knows they have interrogated Deoxum, and they only want to hear from him. He says it's because he sees Deoxum couldn't fight them alone. They ask if he would like to meet Deoxum. He knows it's bait, but he bites it and asks to meet with Deoxum so he can at least know where the snail is. Before leaving, they ask him why the water dragon released him. He says it's because he offered to pay compensation. They do not believe him, but they let him go. As he leaves, Lee Haksung and Subium talk about how they can make him join the Hidden Dragon Squad, a squad to fight the minion. He enters the building and sees injured Sung. He also sees the list of the members of the Hidden Dragon Squad. He sees his masters there and realizes if he joins, they will be working for him during the fight, and he is so excited to meet them, so he says he wants to join, and he joins with Sung. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word dragon. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video, but most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.